Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome everybody to episode 32 of Instigate Success. I am back this week. I'd like to give a thank you, a shout out to our coach, Corey Kern, aka Frosty, for filling in for me last week, as well as Spacely and the other guest on the show last week. Thank you guys for filling in for me. I had a lot of traveling last week and was not able to make it, but I'm back for this week. I plan on being back for the rest of the episodes here. Episode 32, though, so we're definitely got quite a few on the playlist so far. I know you can do the podcast as well on YouTube. After a day or so, we get that uploaded, and we're actually listed under the podcast, so you can listen to us that way as well. But thank you for all of our loyal Patreon subscribers who are watching this live. Thank you for joining our Patreon. I know we just pushed something out earlier today about the voter status. So if you haven't seen that already, be sure to read that message that we posted. That'll be real important when it comes to the off season and voting with rights and stuff. When that comes to that, you also get some exclusive access in addition to just these streams that we have. We have both this weekly podcast on Fridays, as well as all of our live game streams here on Patreon. But we'll also have voter rights coming up shortly, and we'll be discussing a lot more of the nitty gritty when it comes to the ownership side of stuff. So you guys will get to see like finances and have a real say in kind of how we run the whole entire Apex Athletic Collective. So be sure to check out that post if you haven't already. That's listed on our Patreon. But let's jump into things for this week as far as the Instigators go. We're in our final regular season week in the inaugural season. It's a huge accomplishment, not only to reach this point, but to be where we are at this point. We sit at 7-8 and have a chance to finish up the season at 500. We did start off kind of on a slump, not quite as hot as we had hoped for, but we really picked it up here in the second half of the season. I believe we started 2-6, and then we're now 7-8. So that would mean we're 5-2 since that time. We have a chance to completely flip that from 2-6 to 6-2, which would get us to 500 on the season. Really kind of pick things up once the new year kicked around. And we've done an amazing job with our interim coach, Corey Kern, taking over the realm. Team's really been looking hot the past few weeks. We got our graphic for this past week. So I was lucky enough to be in attendance for this game. If you guys caught the live broadcast, I was co-commentating from the venue actually this time. No, the mic probably wasn't quite the best being at the venue. But it was I think that was the first time we've had a commentator live at the venue. So that was cool, being able to give some input on that. We had a couple of situations, that watching the game stream, I know for sure I would have been able to figure out what was going on. So I tried to pass along those messages, for the time stoppages and whatnot. We did find out that the 5 free throws, I'll be honest, we didn't know on the sidelines from the fan, where we were on the fan sideline, not on the bench of the players. We didn't realize initially that that was a call against the Instigators coach for a technical. We did understand the free throws initially for the foul on the play, but then when they shot 5 free throws, we were a little bit confused. Shout out to the cameraman, Rob. He does an amazing job. We both were a little confused, and we were asking each other what happened there. But we got clarification from our head coach himself after the game in the Discord. If you jump in there, and he did explain that there was a technical called on him. And that's what led to the 5 free throws. And with it being a technical, they get the ball back. So that's why there was nobody in the lane for those 5 free throws, because ultimately they're going to get the ball back anyways. So it doesn't make sense for us to have guys in the lane if the ultimate result is going to be that anyways. Um, and I see a shout out here from our man Jason Wright. Thanks for always joining us for these streams. Thank you on the shout out for my shoes. So I also posted about that in the Discord. I wore the semi-pro shoes. I have the box over here. The shoes probably can pull out of the box in a second, but yeah. So I've got these semi-pro shoes, the Flint Tropic. So if you're familiar with the film, it's a film about the ABA, and Will Ferrell has his own basketball team. He's the owner, the coach, and the player. So I thought it was fitting to finally wear those to one of our games, being that we're in the ABA, and it seemed to bring good luck because all the other games I have attended in person did not turn out this way. This was the first time being there in person. I got to witness an Instigators victory, and it's amazing. It's really cool to be part of a team, not only to be a fan of the team. I've experienced that before. Kind of having a say as a fan on the team with the fan controlled. But this was my first time I can say like I was an owner of a team that won a game, and that was pretty awesome to be able to say that in person. And the guys always, every time I come to the game, they always come over and chat. It's always fun hanging out with our players. And it was nice for them to come over. And as soon as the game was over, they all came over and they're like, "Hey, Jake, we finally won a game with you here." So I know they were looking forward to that as well. But you see there, that final score was 121 to 115. The Louisville Pros, they have been one of the hardest teams we've played all season. I think this was our third matchup against them. That first matchup was an overtime matchup, our first and only to this point overtime matchup in history. They wound up grinding out a 102-98 win in that. The second matchup we had against them, they pulled out a win. It was another very close game, but that did not wind up going into overtime. They had a little bit of a bigger victory in that. Still a lower scoring game. I believe both of our teams were, let me see, that was 118 to 111. So still less than 10 points difference in that game as well. Um, but every time I've seen them play, they always play with an intensity. They never find themselves out of the game, regardless of what the score is. If you've joined us and watched that broadcast of the game, they were down by 20 or so points, I think even in the fourth quarter. They really stormed back at the end of the game, and it was kind of nerve wracking being there, especially. But you could tell there was like some tension in the air between the players and the fans and the refs, and everybody there was just on the edge of their seat at the end of the game. Luckily, though, seemed like that technical may have kind of helped flip things around a little bit. They got a couple of shots. They didn't convert all of them though, but I think that kind of changed the demeanor of the team after that, and it kind of pulled things together, helped us finish out that game, and we were able to hold on to that lead with a 6-point victory. But that was very close at the end, and maybe a little bit closer than it should have been. But regardless, the result is victory. That's what matters when it comes down to it at the end. 7-8 on the season. Again, that's a huge accomplishment for the Instigators in our inaugural season, to be sitting at this position and have a shot to finish out the season at 500. But that was our third matchup against the pros. We've got a couple other great teams that we played two or three times throughout the season, being in our division. So that also was really important when it came to playoff seeding. I know our guest host last week probably did a lot better of a job explaining playoffs than I will. But I think with that win, that should put us in a position to likely um, wind up playing the pros again in the playoffs or the play-in game. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that would be a home game for us. Um, but we'll get that all finalized and definitely make post about that when everything uh, comes to a conclusion of the regular season. But I believe that was what I was told as far as we would be sitting in the playoffs currently if things were to end today. But there's a couple of teams at the top of the rankings, and the one team that always finds themselves, it seems to be at the top of the rankings, the Indiana Lions. That is the team we match up against this week. This is going to be our third game against them as well. Another team that we have had very close games to. The first two games didn't wind up falling in our favor. But we saw even if the first two games don't fall in our favor, there's a chance the third game could. If we can repeat the success we had this past week, we've got an opportunity to put ourselves on a hot streak going into the playoffs, which would be amazing, as well as to finish out the season at 500. And to give our interim coach, Corey Kern, an amazing record when it comes to the regular season record. I think he'll definitely have uh, the record for most wins in our inaugural season. But um, like I said, I think he did a good job when it comes to that playoff explaining. I know there's like some criteria I think teams may have to hit to within the division to be part of the playoffs and such. But I think the league will get that figured out when it comes to that. We do know believe unless something happened last time I checked, the Kings are still undefeated, and the Lions only have one loss on the season, and that was to the Kings. So both of those teams, if we wind up playing them in the playoffs, going to be very tough matchups. And we've seen the Instigators can hang around with just about anybody. Um, but if I had to flip a coin between the two, I think I like the matchup between the Lions a little bit better. Um, Depends how this week goes, but it's also the in-state rivalry type of thing, so it kind of has like an extra added thing to it as well. And we had a couple of our guys, both AB and Dylan, are former Lions players, so I think it would be kind of cooler if we had that matchup. And the other thing is, the Lions are the defending champions of the ABA or co-champions. So whoever can knock them off when it comes to the playoffs would be kind of a cool thing to brag about. Um, but we have a chance to play them this week, and we'll have a nice matchup and kind of get a nice playoff preview. See where we stack literally against the champions from last year before we get a chance to go to the playoffs. And I do believe after we finish up this week, there's a break for 1 week, and then we'll go into the playoffs and play-ins the following week. But we'll recap everything from the inaugural season here on Instigate Success next week as we wrap up our season at that point. We had a couple of great performances though in this week's game against the Louisville Pros. Our leading scorer, he's been the leading scorer, seems like for the majority of the season. Lawan Whitney, Mr. Swish himself, 31 points, led the team in points again. He had a lot of critical shots that he was able to get to fall down, and his playmaking ability has really helped the Instigators when it comes to kind of the scoring side of things. He's definitely up there again for the player of the game. I believe he's got one on the season so far, but he led the team again in points, 31 points, and two rebounds, 3 assists. So some other statistics go along with it as well, but he definitely made sure to make those shots fall when he needed to. And we got our guy Chuck Bloom, the team captain. Another solid effort by Chuck. He seems to put up really solid numbers every week. 26 points, so that is a lot of points for Chuck. No, that's definitely more than his average. Um, the one thing though is he's always like so close to getting a double double or a triple double, just a couple of rebounds short and a few more assists away. But 26 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. I believe he is second in voting currently for that player of the game honors, I believe when I checked, he was right around 30%. Um, so second right now in the player of the game voting. But as always, he's a really solid guy for us to lean on. And he's been hitting some more threes, I think, when I've been watching the past couple of games. He's had a couple of opportune threes that's kind of helped change the momentum in the game. But he also has been under the basket, and he's been using his body to get the guys out of the way. And he's kind of been he's not the tallest guy, but he has the presence to play down low. He's been playing great under the basket, kind of bodying some of the opponents out of the way and getting a bunch of layups as well. And I know that's definitely helping his points and the rebounds there. But another great effort from Chuck, definitely up there again for player of the game. Then we got our big man AB. He's on this graphic pretty much every week. I don't think there's been a week we haven't made a graphic for him. That as long as he's played. 23 points, 17 rebounds, 10 blocks. You read that right. That's a triple double. And there's a drink, but we'll get into that. But another triple double for AB. His numbers are pretty much insane every week. 23 points, uh, always right around that 20 or so point mark. 17 rebounds. Uh, he's 7 foot, so he's always got those rebounds. I believe he's leading the league for the rebounds. So that'll be cool if he can take home that honor for the Instigators on the season, as well as blocks. 10 blocks. That's very impressive. I know I definitely have never had 10 blocks in a game. I've played, rec basketball. I don't even know if I had 10 blocks total in my whole rec basketball career. So that's pretty amazing. But he definitely had some major blocks in that game against the Louisville Pros, especially when it came down to the wire and the Pros started that comeback. But again, a triple double for AB. Can't go wrong with the vote. But he's on here every week, so it seems like his numbers are for the voting are a little bit less than that. I believe he's third currently in our voting for player of the game. As always, amazing effort and amazing job by AB, putting up some crazy stats. And our other triple double of the game, Dylan Ware. He's had a couple of triple doubles as well. And this was the drink I was alluding to. There's a drink at our official partner, the Gator Pit. If you go to the Gator Pit, that's our official fan hangout at the Adventure Beer Company in Clinton, Indiana. But they've got drinks named after some of our players, and one of them is the Double Triple Double. And it's named after both of those guys, AB and Dylan Ware, because both of them have the ability to put up triple doubles game in and game out. So you want to show some extra support for your instigators, go there and get some of your players drinks out there. But again, another great game from Dylan. He's really stepped up in the second half with ball distribution, 10 assists. That's a number that sticks out to me. That's the third part of that triple double. But if you look at those stats, pretty similar to AB as well. At 22 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists. So he actually had the same number of rebounds as AB this week, which is very impressive. He's currently leading our vote for the player of the game at 60-ish%. So I believe he's in first currently. We put that vote up yesterday, I believe. So around 60-ish% for him, around 30-ish% for Chuck, and then around 10 or so for AB, and Lawan is trailing behind in fourth place. But be sure to get your votes in here on the Patreon. Any of those guys mean solid efforts and solid stats from all of those guys. Each one of them was a key factor in this week's game for our win against the Louisville Pros. Again, that was a 6-point victory, 121 to 115. And that game was real close when it came down to the line. So we needed all these efforts together to pull that one off. Jumping into this week, we've got our final regular season of the game. I know I mentioned that before. We've played against the Lions a couple of times here. Uh, this was just one of the pictures I had from I think that was our first matchup against the Lions. Um, I love this photo because it's like, AB always has these dunks in the games. Dylan actually, I'll have to call him out. He had some monster dunks this past week. So he had some monster hops and monster dunks. Seeing that in person was pretty crazy. All those guys did an amazing job. Chuck was down low, using his body to get into the lane and throw up some layups. Lawan always outside for three. Any four of those guys, great chance to vote for any four of those for your player of the week. But that dunk right there, you could see the Lions player kind of like leaning back, like, whoa, I don't want to be a part of that. So I love that photo there. Uh, but that's from our first game against the Lions. Um, Again, our final regular season game. It's kind of crazy to realize we're already like finished with our almost finished with our first season at this point. We still got playoffs. We hope and we plan to be in the playoffs for a long time. So still got plenty more basketball for the Instigators in our plans, and we'll definitely be back next year as well. So we're excited about this, but this is a really big game for us. A chance to kind of, we're not going to be able to have a winning record against the Lions in our first season, but to get a win against the Lions in our first season, that would be a really big thing, and being a huge stepping stone, not only for the Instigators as a franchise, but the Instigators when it comes to this year's playoffs. If we can get that win, we're actually on a win streak right now, and I think this is our first legitimate win streak. I know in the first half of the season we were 2-6, so we definitely didn't have a win streak at that point. But I'm looking through our games here, so it does look like this is our first win streak of the season. So we've got multiple games in a row with victories, so we got a chance to extend that, and make ourselves have the longest win streak. However many games we wind up winning on this win streak will be the longest win streak in Instigators history. Um, being the first season, we're always going to have a bunch of like first in history and record breaking type of stats when it comes to that. Um, but it's cool nonetheless. That first game 118 to 110, second game 119-99. Both of those games as well a little bit on our lower scoring side when it comes to the Instigators season totals. I'm still working on that video. We'll get a video out like up on our socials for that breaks down our points per game, points allowed, and it does the opponents as well. So definitely have that out. I think the Lions are 15-1 if I'm not mistaken, and their only loss at this point has come against the Kings. Um, so I know their stats are probably still going to be pretty crazy for the whole season. But both of those games, the numbers I don't think really tell the whole story of the game. We were really close against the Lions in both of those games, and that first matchup, that kind of really, I think it was kind of like being an owner. I got to see that, and kind of realize like this team. I know we've been saying it the whole time, like this team is good and we have a chance to beat anybody, but that was like literally the defending champions, and we were right there with them the whole game, and it showed not only us, but I think the rest of the ABA that the Instigators, we might be in our first season, but we're a legitimate team and we're here ready to play against anybody on the court. We can stick with the best of them. So if we can keep that kind of momentum that we've had the past few games, um, I think we've got a real good shot at this week's game. Um, I'm not gonna call my shots here, but it'd be awesome to wind up finishing the season here with a 500 record. Um, but I think regardless of what happens for the regular season, I still would chalk it up to a positive on the whole season. Once we hit that new year, we've really kicked things around, and I think just from seeing that, that has been the best takeaway possible for this season. I mean, obviously, we wanted to come in here and just kind of steamroll everybody, but we realized this is professional basketball, and there's a reason why. There's it. You can't just walk in there and win every game. There's a lot of pieces that go into this. We've all learned a lot throughout the season. Um, and this game, I will be remote, so I won't be in person for this game. But I am working on possibly trying to get out there for the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But everybody, remember to tune in this week for the final regular season game against the Indiana Lions. Again, I'll make that video and some graphics and stuff that we'll put out with some more statistics and whatnot for this week's game against the Lions. But as always, we've got that matchup. It seems like every time we play the Lions, that always gets highlighted. Both AB and Dylan are former Lions players. So I think there's a little bit of extra intensity between them and the Lions when it comes down to the game time. Um, but that's just another thing to watch. We'll have to see if you know they could pull off another triple double. And I see here in the comments, I haven't checked it in a little bit here, but I see we got our man Chuck is here in the chat. He also was a fan of those semi-pro shoes. Thank you, Chuck, for that. And in the future, any more games that I go to, I'm definitely wearing those semi-pro shoes. Maybe a little superstitious when it comes to that. Um, but I know I've worn different shoes to each of the games I've been to. So in my mind, whether or not it's actually a thing or not, um, we won one game with those shoes, so I'm gonna wear them until that's not an undefeated pair of shoes. I also had the Dexter's Laboratory shoes. I think I had some skate shoes a couple other times as well, um, and didn't get a victory with those. So gonna say it was the shoes because I know the team played very well in all the games I've been at. Um, and I mean they're capable of winning every game that they play. So I'm just gonna blame it on the shoes if we pin it down to one thing when it comes to the games that I've been at. But at least we got the one win. So now I'm not like paranoid if I come to a playoff game that I'm bad luck for the team, but I think it's the shoes. So we'll test maybe not test it out, but if I go to the playoff game, I'm definitely wearing those shoes. Um, and a reminder, if we're able to make it to the championship, um, I will be adding to that Instigators tattoo that I got at the beginning of the season, right underneath where I have that logo, right on my chest. I will add champion underneath of that. So that's a little extra incentive for the to make it there, and hopefully we can talk some of our other owners into that as well. Oh, I think. Let me see. I think that was it for the game part of stuff. I also did want to take a minute here just to let everybody know what was going on this past weekend. Why, normally I'm not able to go up on the Sunday games, but there was a special circumstance that allowed me to make it out there for the game on Sunday in Louisville. And that's what also led to me not being on the stream last week. So I'll pull it up here, and you can see I also changed my name on here a little bit. Some people may already know me as Jakey Muffins, but I had the opportunity this weekend, actually this past week on Monday, to be in my first movie shoot. So hopefully, when it's all said and done and they chop up the film, AB won't be the only one that has the Hollywood nickname, but maybe I'll be on the screen at some time. All right, I think my headphones died, but I think they came back. So yeah, hopefully, I'll be joining AB on the big screen. Um, I think the target is for Halloween, but we're not 100% sure. But I had an amazing opportunity to be part of a film set on Monday. You can see there, my nickname is Jakey Muffins, and I was lucky enough to have a muffin attached to my ear. So quite literally making Jakey Muffins uh, reality. But the film is a horror film, if you couldn't tell, and those are prosthetics and makeup and stuff that they put on me for the film. So that was fun, and it's gonna be about a bunch of diner food. So a bunch of diner food that comes back to life and starts attacking people. I believe it's gonna be called the Haunted House of Pancakes. Um, but if you guys follow me on social, I'll get you updated on that throughout any updates they have with that. And if you see there, they let me wear what I wanted on set. So I actually snuck in a custom Instigators t-shirt, like button-up t-shirt that I made. And you can see on the sleeves, I actually have, it says Instigate and oh, it says "Be Great, Instigate." That's what it is on the sleeves. And you got some little pattern there and the Instigators logo. So snuck that in. So hopefully that makes a cut as well. It'd be pretty awesome to see the Instigators logo in a film. But that is the reason why I was not able to make it last week for the stream, uh, for this stream on Friday night, but I was there for the game stream. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But I think that's pretty much everything I had for this week. Um, we'll jump into a lot more of a whole season recap next week. Um, and we'll definitely go over the game this week. Once that hits a final result between the Lions and the Instigators. Again, this is our final regular season game of the year. Uh, Huge accomplishment to make it this far for everybody involved with the instigators. Um, I know it sounds cliche, and we've been saying this a lot, but as we come to the wrap of the season, really we want to thank all of our supporters here, um, and all of our fans. Especially those of you here on our Patreon, our loyal subscribers that are here for all of our game streams, our podcast streams, taking part of all of our votes throughout the season, whether it was the player of the week for this past game, or if it was all the way back before the season when we did that bracket to decide what our jersey was going to be. So, I mean, we're looking forward to seeing what happens in this week's game, as well as our playoff run. But I think that's pretty much all I had for this week. Again, if you're local, go out to the Gator Pit. This is an away game, so our final game is an away game. If you can't make it out to the Lions venue, go to the Gator Pit at the Adventure Beer Company, and you can watch all of our away games exclusively streaming at the Gator Pit. You can enjoy some of our player named cocktails there while you enjoy the Instigators game. So you'll have that option as well. And we're always here on Patreon. All of our games are streamed live here on Patreon as well. And then we'll upload them on YouTube a few days later um, after the results are posted. But again, a huge opportunity to finish out our season here at 500. If we're able to pull this off, that would put us at 8-8 on the season. Really looking forward to it. It'd be an amazing feat to accomplish. And, regardless of what happens, again, I think we really got to, I think since we've hit this new year, everybody's just kind of kicked it into a new gear, and everybody involved with the team really deserves a shout out from players and coaching. And looking forward to seeing how this season wraps up here. Thank you, everybody, for being part of our inaugural season for the Hoosier State Instigators. Um, but that is going to be it for this week's episode of Instigate Success. Again, it's episode 32. Uh, Made it a long way since then. Um, Pretty crazy to see that we're wrapping up the regular season of our first season. Uh, and until then, we'll get the video out sometime this weekend before the game. And until then, catch us on Patreon here for our final regular season game, and be great. Instigate.